Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm your host, Ali Ingersoll. We are less than 6 months away from the Paris Olympics. North Carolina athletes could be representing Team USA across several sports, including track and field, triathlon, and swimming. WRAL Sports' Louis Fernandez recently had a chance to talk with some athletes hoping to make the team and is joining us to talk about the games as well. Hey, Louis, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, Ali, thanks for having me.
Of course. So who are some of the local hopefuls that everyone's keeping an eye on?
Well, so North Carolina has a rich history of sports success, right? So you've got a couple of swimmers from NC State, for example. You have some basketball tie-ins, perhaps. It's still a little early on in the process to know the exact ones, but one person we do know who has qualified for the Olympic trials is Curzan, who I got a chance to speak with on Friday.
That's really great. So how is she, and how was that conversation? She, as you just said, we covered her quite a bit during the Tokyo Olympics, and so I guess how is she preparing for these games?
So it's interesting because when the Tokyo Olympics in 2021, right, when everything was a little bit wonky with the world of sports in general as well as the world. One thing that Claire said was she was a teenager at the time. So if she qualified for the Olympics in 2021, and she said if they were happening in 2020, she doesn't think she would have had a chance because she would have been 15 years old, I believe. So to get in at 16 and get a chance to compete, 16, 17, the way that she did, I think it's really phenomenal. So a lot has changed in her life just in that time, right? She's graduated high school, went to Cardinal Gibbons in Raleigh. Mm-hmm. She also went to Stanford, where she won a national championship while there for a year. Since then, she transferred to Virginia, now swimming at Virginia, and she's taking an Olympic red shirt this year, is what it's commonly referred to. Essentially, she will take her whole time redshirting, like, you hear quarterbacks in college, their freshman year red shirt, where they participate, but they're not playing, they're not competing. And so she's taking this time to really prepare and get herself ready for a run at the Olympic team, and maybe getting a chance to get another medal in France this time in Paris.
What does her training look like right now? Did she talk with you about that?
Yeah, so it's fortunately for her right now, it's a little bit step back. It's not as intensive because you have to be careful how you essentially use your body when you're training up and getting ready. So, for example, coming up in February, she's going to have the World Championships. That is in Qatar. So that's super exciting, obviously. But she's going to continue to kind of work at her craft. A lot of the things I read about her and her swimming abilities is she's kind of a Swiss Army knife, where she has a bunch of different events that she can participate in. Medleys, backstroke, things along those lines, freestyle. So it's, I think, a combination of finding that right balance between getting yourself ready physically, but also not doing too much where you burn yourself out too quickly.
Yeah, she medaled as part of a relay team during the last Olympics. Is there kind of a stroke that she's focusing on now, or did she talk about that at all?
Looking back at her history, backstroke has been one of the big ones for her. But when you look at because with the Olympic trials in general, right, you qualify based on the times that you have in meets. So far she's qualified for, I believe it's 5 different versions or specific meets, if you will, specific events. Kind of still working at it and see where it goes, but she's got a good number that she can compete in and kind of slide into the team wherever they need it.
And obviously the Olympics are more than just her events. So did she talk with you at all about what it was like being over in Tokyo?
Wild. I believe that her birthday was during the training camp portion, which would have been in Hawaii in Tokyo, during the Tokyo Olympics, I believe. So, like I said, she was a teenager. So kind of just soaking it all in, being in the moment as best as you can. Obviously, 2021 was a different experience than, a normal Olympics would have been. So, but this is the chance to kind of get up there and compete next to like the Katie Ledeckis of the world. And I think it was very special for her. And, she wants to keep it going.
Yeah, you keep talking about how she's a teenager. I guess, how do these people like this who are just so amazing at their sports, how do they get discovered at such a young age and then they become Olympians by the time they're 15, 16 years old?
Well, you just, the Olympic, the U.S. team, the way it kind of works is you have different stages, different levels, and as you get older, you kind of advance in the stages and the levels, the juniors and things like that. And oftentimes it's just about having really good times at the different events that you go to. Also, some of it's about the teams that you're on and the groups that you're with. So, for example, Claire, she was part of the TAC Titans at the Triangle Aquatic Center, which is one of the better clubs, one of the better teams in the country. I think it was in the 2021 Olympic trials. They had 14 folks come from the TAC Titans, which was either the best or the second best in the country. So part of it's the infrastructure that you grow up in and that you get a chance to compete with. And there's a whole lot of swimming success in this area of the country for sure.
Yeah, I think TAC was saying that they have about 8 or 9 people right now who are in the trial. So
that sounds about right. Yeah, they're good.
Yeah. We'll take a break and we'll come back and we'll talk more about that. Welcome back. So besides our local athletes, we have dozens of swimmers who will be coming here because, like we were saying, the Triangle Aquatic Center in Cary will be a training site. So, Louis, how exactly did it get selected, and what really does this mean for Cary, for Raleigh?
Well, I think part of it is the fact that, like I said, TAC is very good. It's a great facility, and it's something that you have a lot of people kind of come through and grow up in and compete in. Also, some of it is because of proximity and what is easiest. So to kind of give you like a timeline example here, right? The domestic training camp, which is going to be going on at the Triangle Aquatic Center for the 2024 Olympics. It's from June 30th to July 10th. The Olympics will start pretty shortly after that. Like it's do your thing at the domestic training camp and then fly over to Paris. So when you look at where some of the other domestic training camps have taken place over the past few just Olympics in general, for Japan, it was Hawaii, which geographically makes sense. For Rio, it was San Antonio, which once again, geographically makes sense. So it's a combination of finding, I think, what is easiest for travel purposes and what is going to be a good facility for folks to get ready for, because really it is the springboard into those Olympic events and those Olympic moments, because it's so intimidating, I think, in the Olympics, especially for an event like swimming where, hey, you only get a couple of chances at this every few years. So it's important to make sure you're in the right space mentally, physically before you get there.
So we've talked a lot about worlds, about trials, about all this. What exactly are all these things? Are the worlds just as competitive and as exciting as the Olympics? And does that kind of, since it's an Olympic year too, does that kind of set the tone for like what it will be like in Paris?
Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of swimmers view the World Championships as incredibly important in general, right? But it's also, when it's the same year as the Olympics, it can kind of serve as a little bit of a benchmark, a jumping off point, kind of seeing what you need to work on and what you need to improve. Because in order to qualify for the Olympic trials for the U.S., for example, you have to qualify a certain time in different events between, I believe it was November 30th, I want to say, of 2022, up through May of this year. So you have a lot of time to do that. So it's just more opportunities to qualify for more events, to tune yourself up, get yourself ready. And plus, it's just, it's the World Championships of anything, right? Like if you can come back with so many medals, I think Claire specifically, it was, hold on, I have it written down here in my notes. In 2022 in the World Championships, right, she had a bronze. One of her bronze medals was her first individual medal at the international level, and then a couple of golds in relays. So it's a big deal for sure. And it's sometimes, I think, Olympic sports can be a little bit difficult to follow for the normal person who isn't necessarily into it super much. But once you start following along, it's really cool to see these moments spike and just how important it is for the athletes involved.
Yeah, so can we quickly talk a little about this background with it as well? So when are some of these trials that we should be keeping an eye out for?
Sure. So I mentioned that the championships were in February, so that's one. Now, in terms of the actual Olympic trials, they are always, I think, later than people realize.
Yeah.
Because it pushes it right up to the start. The Olympic trials this year are in Indianapolis from June 15th to the 23rd. So the Olympics start in the middle of July. So that's obviously not a whole lot of time there. And to kind of give you that perspective, right? You can qualify for the trials up to the end of May. And then you have the actual Olympic trials where 26 men and 26 women are picked as part of the U.S. team. And then that domestic training camp that we were talking about earlier that's taking place at TAC, that starts on June 30th. So it is very hurry up and wait. And then the second you get there, it's go, 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 go. So the whole summer for these athletes is going to be pretty intense.
Yeah, and it really varies by sport, too. So I know that the marathon trials are this weekend, so we'll know who's running the marathon in Paris coming up this weekend. And it's just so interesting that it is, for some athletes, it's that very short, like, go, go, go. And for others, it's this different kind of build because it's different on your body.
Sure. Oh, yeah. And then you have the team sports, too, right? Like for basketball, for example, you have a whole bunch of people who will qualify for the teams, but then ultimately the coaches and the people involved, the administrators, are going to pick who is going to participate in those games, what's the best fit, how to make the best team. So there are a lot of sports. There are a lot of different ways they come together for the Olympics, but ultimately it's a lot of fun.
And this is my last one. I actually know a couple people who are heading to Paris this year. They're super excited. They've been talking about like what they're getting tickets to see. I love the opening ceremony. I like track and field. I like running a lot, so that's kind of my thing. So what are you most excited about? What's your favorite part of the Olympics?
So I've actually been very fortunate where in 2016 it was in Rio for the Olympics. It was an amazing experience. But I mean, I think personally, I love basketball. So the opportunity to see the basketball teams compete, I think, is really fun. But I think that the classic Olympic events, right? The track and field, the swimming, those types of things are just, it's the pomp of what the Olympics is, the giant track, all the photographers, all just like it feels otherworldly isn't the right word, but the Olympics, I think at times feels like it elevates what sports is and what sports can be. And that's, I think, in those kind of swimming and track moments, that's when you really feel that Olympic shine.
That's so amazing that you got to experience that and that you get to tell us about like the feel there. So thank you so much for coming on and talking about this and sharing this. The opening ceremony is set to take place on July 26th. You can watch all of the games right here on WRAL. So thank you, Louis, for joining us. And thank you for listening to the WRAL Daily Download. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can find other podcasts from WRAL. Just search podcasts on our website. From sports to true crime, there are plenty of shows to keep you informed and entertained. Thanks for listening.